This conference will now be recorded.
It is 6:30 p.m. Thursday, May the 20th. We are beginning a notice of a special meeting of the Rhome City Council. Its notice is here given, but in accordance with the order of the governor, we'll conduct a special meeting by telephone conference in order to advance public health goals of limiting face-to-face meetings. This meeting is closed to in-person attendance by the public, but those that are on phone, we appreciate your interest. So we'll move down to, we do have a quorum. Shannon, you want to verify that for the record?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember McCabe?
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Ty?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Priest?
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Eason?
Hello.
Thank you. Councilmember Majors?
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. All council members are present.
Okay, we'll move on to our first article. It's public presentations and input. Shannon, do you have anyone for that?
Yes, ma'am. We have one speaker request, and that is Shirley Mize.
This is Shirley Mize, and I live at 170 Russell Street. And the topic today, I wanted to speak concerning the traffic on Main Street. It looks like it's a big freeway out there right now for some reason, and I think that needs to be looked at, along with the redirection of that roadway, what that traffic's going to do backing up to the freeway at any given point if it goes to a stop sign of any kind whatsoever. And the speed on that road needs to be looked at. And I know it's a state highway, but as far as the people that are driving on that road, they really don't care what that speed is. Also on Hickory, off of Virginia, that road is being also abused by speeding. There's children that play in that area. They had a birthday party not very long ago, and several children were out playing in the front yard that adjoined to that road, and people were driving 60 on that road. So if we could, please ask for that to be monitored on both those roads to see if we can't get these drivers slowed down a little bit, on consideration it is a city, and I know that they're using it as far as Main Street as a cut through big time right now. So if we can get that adjusted or see what we need to do to fix that as well, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Mayor, that was the entire list.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. We'll move on down to announcements. 2 or 3 things. Thursday, May the 27th is our regular council meeting, so this did not take place of that. So mark your calendars for May the 27th. And then our city employees get a day off on May 31st in observance of Memorial Day. So keep that in mind. I have a few general announcements I want to make. Thanks to the 4 council members that recently attended the Wise County Chamber Mayor's Dinner. The support is really appreciated. Other Rhome residents were also in attendance. Thanks to all. We have volunteer opportunities in the city. We are seeking volunteers for annual appointment to the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the parks. June the 18th is the deadline to file, and appointments will be made June the 24th. See the Rhome webpage for further information and get to be a part of our city, volunteer for some of this stuff. And I'd also like to thank the Rhome Fire and Rescue and the Rhome Police Department for the recent training they received in the American Heart Association BLS healthcare provider CPR/AEDs. AEDs are defibrillators. Those come in pretty handy sometimes. 5 defibrillators have been purchased with grant money for our police cars. This is another instance of Rhome's departments working together. So hope we don't need a defibrillator, but we do have them now, and we have people trained to use them. Also, Officer Moore recently received his Master Peace Officer certificate. Let him know we appreciate this. This is no easy task. And along that same line, May is National Appreciation Month. We salute and give thanks to all our military men and women who selfishly served. And we may have done this last week, but they did some final stuff on it. So here is a shout out to Elaine and Terry Priest and Tommy Eason for gardening at the City Hall. Hey, it looks good. Rhome Library has new hours beginning June the 1st. Tuesday through Friday, they will be open from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Also, volunteers were needed for Rhome veterans who will be placing flags on veterans' graves at the Aurora Cemetery May the 28th at 10. Everybody is invited to come help. It's kind of a solemn occasion. And then we move on to May the 29th. The annual Veterans Memorial Day program begins at 11 at the Rhome Veterans Park. Let's all attend and pay respect to those who have gone before. And lastly, hey, those that still are looking for COVID shots, Rhome Pharmacy has them. They have the Johnson & Johnson. And you have to sign up on their webpage, but there's a lot of times available. So go for it. Do any of the council people have announcements? Okay, we have attached here too the consent agenda. This time it's the council special session.
Mayor, I believe Councilman.
Josh has got his hands up. I'm sorry, Josh.
That's okay. I did have a quick announcement. I wanted to read something real quick. The Oklahoma University EDI is an extensive and intensive 117-hour certificate program, which provides a broad spectrum of advanced education for the economic development professional. These classes focus on 3 major core areas, including business retention and expansion, real estate, and credit analysis, as well as areas of concentration in workforce development, marketing, strategic planning, entrepreneurship, community and neighborhood development, and managing economic development organizations. It usually takes 1 to 2 years to complete the program through a series of intensive in-person or online courses. So I wanted to read that, and I just wanted to congratulate our city administrator, Cynthia Northrop, for completing that course. I appreciate you wanting to further your professional development for yourself, but I know it's also going to come in handy for helping us with focusing on the growth that's coming to Rhome. So I know it's going to benefit us as well. So congratulations on completing the course, and thank you for everything you're going to be able to bring to this town with that.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
congratulations, Cynthia. You know, y'all give her a round of applause.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else? Then I'll try not to overlook the hand. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. In this instance, it's minutes of a previous city council special meeting dated May the 12th. Do I have a motion or anything that we accept this? Josh is saying yes, and Elaine, are you saying too?
I said too. I
Okay.
second.
Oh, okay. Your name is in front of your hand here on this silly screen. So, hey, hang in there. We'll get to everybody as we can. Okay, Shannon, you want to call for a vote?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember McCabe?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Ty?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Priest?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Eason?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Majors?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, and moving along, the next thing is, let me find it here on the thing. Discussion and necessary action regarding a proclamation for National Police Week, which was actually last week, but we'd like to think of now. Josh, do you have that certificate to read?
Yes, ma'am, I do. Proclamation of recognition from the City of Rome, National Police Week 2021, May 9th through the 15th of 2021. To recognize National Police Week 2021 and to honor the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are more than 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Rome Police Department. Whereas since the first recorded death in 1791, more than 20,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty. Whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. Whereas May 15th is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families, and U.S. flags should be flown at half staff. Whereas COVID-19 pandemic took a physical, mental, and emotional toll, our officers, deputies, and troopers demonstrated courage and dedication in continuing to support our communities. And whereas the City of Rome honors those who lost their lives in the line of duty and thank them on behalf of the city for their service. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Rome formally designates May 9th through the 15th of 2021 as Police Week in Rome, Texas, and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across the nation. Passed and approved by the City Council of the City of Rome, Texas, this 20th day of May 2021.
Thank you, Josh. And Brody, tell everybody we really appreciate everything they do.
Yes, ma'am, we will. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on, we have one more thing. And if y'all remember, we had a 20-minute meeting the other night. So I don't know what this is going to do to us, but discussion and any necessary action regarding City of Rome facilities, needs, and financial options. Sam, is this yours or Cynthia's?
It's actually Councilmember Eason's.
Okay, Sam.
Okay. I'll take credit for asking for the agenda item, but I do believe this is something that we should all own. I'd like to start off with trying to get everyone to acknowledge that of all the issues that we have in Rome, finding a safe place for our citizens to go for city business and for our employees to work, the police, fire, city administration, and I'm going to go back to the citizens. This is of paramount importance. So to me, this is one of our absolutely most important tasks in front of us. Can I get a head nod for anybody agreeing with me, or, you know? Okay. So with that being said, I think that we need to focus on, let's find a way to get these issues addressed. We have a report, and Cynthia was good enough to include that, the facilities assessment from back in January that Sean did. Again, thank you. Well done, Sean. We have an assessment of the problems that we have. We need to be ADA compliant. We need electrical code compliance. We need fire code compliance. And we need to get this done. Okay. So I would like to say, in the spirit of this great country that we live in, let's compromise. Let's negotiate. Let's talk. Whatever we need to do, I think we need to come up with a unanimous decision for how we're going to fix these facilities. So everything's on the table. What can we do to get these facilities fixed and, you know, give everybody a safe place to work? Thoughts, anyone? Okay, I'll start. Brainstorming. We're going to have a bond, right? If we're going to try to do that, you know, get something going this year, we'll need to pass a bond in November. Okay. In order to get that bond, we're going to have the designs for what we want completed by mid-August. Okay. This being late May, that means we have an incredibly short window to get these designs and get the bond prepared. First thing I'd like to throw out there, we can take our existing design for the failed bond from last year for the municipal complex, and that design already exists, but then we can augment that with having the electrical code, having the fire department electricity brought up to code. We can have the ceiling dried in, you know, so it no longer leaks. We can have the fire department actually be fire code compliant. Okay, we can add that to the bond. This would give the police department a safe place to work. It would give the fire department a safe place to work. It would give city administration a safe place to work. I'm throwing this out there as just a first option. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add, subtract?
Josh has his hand up, Sam.
So Sam, I agree with you. We just don't have the money in the budget to be able to come straight out and do this. And so I think a bond is
I can't
an
hear
option.
you very well, Josh.
Sorry, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. So I agree with you. We just don't have the money in the budget to straight out do all this. So I think a bond is probably our only option. However, obviously it got voted down again. So I would say, if we go out with the same bond, then maybe we have the same kind of bad luck. So what if we look at it and instead of like the facelift to the fire department and community center, we take those funds and instead put those internally in upgrading ADA, fire codes, all that good stuff to bring everything up to code. And then maybe at another time we can look at facelift. That way we're not adding money to it, we're just moving the money around to bring
So Josh, what you're saying is basically the same plans that we have, and then work with some wording or whatever for the fire department and public works in that same complex, or am
Right.
I tracking?
The plan was to do some paint and some texture work and whatnot on the outside just to make everything look nice and shiny. But instead taking those funds and putting it inside and bringing everything up to code. And then later on, we can figure out a way to make it nice and shiny on the outside. That way, at least we have buildings that are code compliant and workable for everybody, and we can throw some paint on it later on.
If I remember right, the plans that were on the previous bond did not include public works, or did they? I don't think it did. So what's your thoughts, Sam or Josh or anybody, on public works?
Well, one thing, let me just interject one thing. If you remember, and I don't have the figures right in front of me, but I think going along Josh's line, I think it was around 275 on the exterior of the fire department. I think there were some other components to that, but if you took that and dedicated it to bringing the fire department into code compliance and public works into code compliance, and maybe some of the other items, the bathrooms that were identified in the fire department, that 275 might be able to do both public works and fire. I mean, we'd have to look at it, but might be able to. One of the things we did do was we got cost estimates for bringing each building, if you remember, up to code. And so that was roughly, give or take, around 50, a little under 50,000 for, each facility. And then, so I think you might have the money in that 275 if you were to redirect it, as Josh was saying. And we'd have to look at that, but that might cover both.
Is there anything possible to cut from the plans, the existing plans? Okay, Elaine's got a thought. Elaine,
Yeah.
you're mute. There we go.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to unmute there. Well, I following behind Josh a little bit. I think that we need to take a look at all of the original plans and cut the fat. I mean, I don't know a nice way to say that, but I'm just saying, the fire department, the exterior of that is one thing. We had added some things, for example, like that the covered parking that we were going to have for employees would be sturdy enough to at a future time to support solar. Well, maybe we don't build it quite to that standard. We also spent some money in the auditorium area, which would be the educational and meeting room for the community. There was some effort then to save some of the original fixtures that were there and repurpose them from a historical standpoint, so the building had that flavor. Maybe that's more expensive to do that. And so I would suggest that maybe we get with quorum again and say, we want you to go over the original plan and cut the fat, because what we need to do is to get everybody in a compliant building. And so that would be Public Works, that would be the fire department. And if we could work really hard on that, I would love to see us get Old City Hall in the mix of that. Would have to run some numbers, but while we're doing it, it's certainly not in compliance, and certainly it is a city property. And from a health and safety standpoint, we are charged with the responsibility of all of the buildings that we own to maintain them and for them to be up to code. So I really would like us to take what we had, so we don't have to, come up with all new plans, but I'd like to cut all the fat out of it and get all of the buildings up to code. And then we can do some of the additional things later on that's more cosmetic, upgrade this or that. But if we could come up with a bond that was only the same or slightly more, and remember that bond had $1 million of contingency in it, because we can't get, we have to wait until we have the money or the bond is passed before we can get competitive bids. But I do think that we can change our original plans and get them lean and mean, and get the rest of our buildings up to code. Again, not necessarily all the whistles and the bells, not all of the fancy cosmetics, but having usable, adequate buildings that are safe for our citizens and our employees. So that's what I'd like to see is what can we cut so that we can add the things we really need to get done. That's my opinion.
Josh, what's your gut feeling of the citizens? Will they favorably look at another bond, or will they say we've already done this? And I know it's just a guess, but what do you think we're looking at with the citizens?
I think if we, like Elaine said, cut out some of the fat and just do the basics, and if we share the information, very well with the citizens, and we put out there, this is exactly what's going in there, this is what's not going in there. We will be able to use it for different activities, things like that. I think this time around that it may work. I would like to see that. To go along with that, I think maybe if we put together some sort of like bond committee, so since the council cannot proactively push for it, maybe we put a bond committee together of private citizens that are excited about this, and they can talk with the people and put stuff together. So maybe that would help, a peer-to-peer type deal. And then maybe, if we're, like Elaine said, if we do a combo type deal with City Hall, I think people would get excited about that because we're saving two buildings at once. But instead of redoing the entire building, maybe we just do enough to get a shell done, or like frame it out and put four walls and a ceiling, and then later on we look at donations or grants or something for movable walls or equipment to go in there, tables, chairs, stuff like that. So that's my thought on
Okay, Ashley?
Since you just spoke on grants, it's very unfortunate that we have been it's been unfortunate that we have been unable to receive grants the past years. So looking back over the facilities condition assessment report, and if Sean's on the phone to speak on it, the numbers, the cost amount are a little outrageous to me compared to what I've pulled up on the bid online, kind of looking to what prices are and building materials and kind of doing my own assessments and putting it together. So I think if we could get like bids, if it's just, comparing to what he's saying, if it's, the AC just being replaced, if it's just the roof leaks, price per item, to get, that cost, and not to say if it's the police, the police department, it might be cheaper that we've said before just to get a modular building and see what that is if compared to a new AC, the breaker box being moved, where he said it was 926,000, things like that. But if, like I said, if we can get a breakdown for the restroom and or the windows, for instance, in the senior building, I don't have it pulled down, but the senior building needed new windows. It didn't even have ADA compliant for the restroom, but I know it's needs the bars and the handle, for the wheelchair accessible, and then the paper towel I think needs to be brought down, stuff like that. But if we got those, then we can present it and talk about it. I think that since it's going to be fast, if we present this to the citizens, I think we do need to have a town hall meeting to get this going, because I don't have a good feeling with the citizens. The bond for NISD did not pass in Wise County, so I don't have a very good feeling. So, and what the prices are on this assessment and what we could be asking for, it's a little much. But I am 100% for the old school. I want whatever we can get for the old school to get that replaced and get it up and running. So whatever, I'll just keep listening to you.
Yeah, let me jump there, Councilmember Majors. One of the assumptions, as a reminder, and I know back in January we did talk about it again in the budget workshop a little bit, but that facilities assessment report was based on the big assumption of redoing all of the buildings. So it wasn't just bringing them up to code and minor cosmetic adjustments. That was using a going rate at that time, which has changed, as many know, because prices have gone up exponentially. But that was using a figure of $275 a square foot to entirely redo and remodel each of our city facilities. So keep that in mind on that facilities assessment report. That was one of the assumptions up front. So I just wanted to point that out in that report.
Right, but if I did mine and when I did an estimate cost and did all this figurations for me, if I did the overhead, 10%, gave them a profit and everything, I'm looking at doing 330, total budget of 335,000. So it's total square feet of 227, 33 square feet. So, I mean, it's just a little variance, but I was just saying that to breaking it down price first so we could see and we could tell the citizens. So it's just a little here. But y'all just keep talking, Elaine. I just want to hear more.
I want to bring something is that we got to be careful trying to break it down by cost because we cannot piecemeal, like have one person go do the AC, one person do this, because anytime you have a facility or any project that totals more than $50,000, you have to have it sealed bid. So we can't like bid, and then when you do that, then there's engineering, design, and all that stuff. So yeah, we can do it, but it's kind of not accurate because you cannot just do pieces at a time especially if the value goes over $50,000. You have to bid as a whole package. So I just wanted to let you know that's a violation of the purchasing laws if we try to piecemeal something if it comes over $50,000.
Now, Ashley, what you were referring to more is our estimates, right? To bring our estimates more in line
Yes, because I mean,
with
when you look at the fire station,
not the construction or the change. And Elaine's getting tired. She keeps holding that hand up. So, yes, ma'am.
Oh, I've got my elbow set on the desk. It's okay.
Good. Okay.
I have two things. One is, unfortunately, municipalities can't handle things like you would at home if you were going to get prices and also diagnostics as to what's wrong with your house. In this situation, if we do a bond, we would make sure that the bond was enough to cover our best guess and also contingency, because you start doing this and doing that, then you find out that there's something else wrong. If the bond is more than what we actually spend, we can take the balance of the bond and pay it back on the back end of the bond. And that way you shorten the term and you reduce the interest that you would have paid by going ahead and doing that. But unfortunately, anything over $50,000, we have to have the cash in hand. The bond has to pass before we can get those competitive bids. And that's just the way that it is. We can't change that particular thing. And that's what Mr. Dinsmore was referring to. Also, the other thing I want to speak to is how the community may or may not support the bond. I'd like to go back and just let you know that I pulled up the numbers for the vote on the bond in November. It lost, the difference was 44 votes. And it was a big turnout because it was a presidential election. So the short of that is if 23 people had changed their vote to be for, it would have passed. And so now it is much more public, and that the condition of the buildings, I think the town is much more aware of the situation. And I'm going to use the word dire situation for our buildings. And I think that they also understand better that by dealing with those buildings and getting them looking better and operational and safe, then that helps with, I don't want to call them an eyesore, but certainly upgrades the aesthetics of the exterior of the buildings. And that's part of what we want in the original town of Rome, is for those things to look better and raise that standard. So I do think that with the group that Josh talked about, putting together a group of citizens that deal strictly with the facts and not speculations, then I think we've got a good chance, because 23 votes was the difference of just changing from nay to yay. And I think that doing our homework and doing our presentation and doing it well, factually well, that we've got a good chance. It may be close. Nobody wants to have a bond, but we're in a situation with the city council where we have inherited a closet full of skeletons, and it's called those buildings. And so we just have to toughen up and find a way to make it work.
One thing I did want to just add to what Councilmember Priest just shared earlier in her conversation, if and when you all would determine to go to a vote, you are always, and the school district did this, and a county is going to do this, any other city is going to do this, you're going to go with estimates like we did before. I mean, that 4.75 was, an estimate, professional estimate based on industry standards. However, you're going to get authorized. Okay, so had that passed at 4.75 million. Yes, there was about $1 million in contingency in that particular package. You're authorized then from the voters to spend 4.75 million. Then you're going to take that design that we already had, you're going to go out and you're going to get bids on that, right? And you're going to get pricing on that. And it may well come in less than that 4.75. I think at that time, it may well have come in around $4 million because the prices were still very low at that point in time. Case in point, the East Wastewater Treatment Plant. We were estimating it was going to come in at around 2.3, I believe, and it came in at a little under 1.9 million. So the prices were much lower then. But then you don't have to issue all of that 4.75. So then you've got your numbers. It's 4 million. You only issued then the 4 million. So, that's the other option. You don't have to, you've got the authorization to issue that level of bond, but you don't have to do the full amount, and you will have a bid that will tell you what amount you will actually issue.
And one of the things I heard that citizens were more concerned with, and I wished I brought it with me, the wording on the ballot. It looked like anything goes. And can we have a ballot that's more specific? We need to do one of these and two of those, and not just general, that we could do anything with this money we want to. And Cynthia, do you remember how that wording was on the ballot? It was for anybody.
I don't remember.
I don't exactly remember now. A bond counsel will tell you, you do want to have it, specific, and you have to have it somewhat specific. But at the same time, you want to have some flexibility in there for the city to be able to respond to the market and what's going on. So I do not honestly remember. I'll look at that, but I mean, we can always tighten up the wording.
Well, is the wording, somebody told me, and I certainly don't remember who or what, that it was required by law to have this particular wording on there. And I believe Northwest may have had a similar wording, but then you look at City X and they don't have that wording. So let's look at that and see if we can clean that up. And I don't know, it kind of gave all power to relocate, to move, to, it was very general.
We can
I
look
have pulled up the ballot. Do you want me to read the ballot language?
If you could, yes, please.
The issuance of not to exceed 4,750,000 of City of Rome, Texas general obligation bonds for a municipal government complex and the levying of a tax in payment thereof.
Was there not some additional wording on the ballot?
No, ma'am. I think you are thinking of the information that has to be on the school board saying that it's going to raise the taxes, which it did not. But no, that was exactly what the proposition was.
Okay, because I was thinking someone, and I'd have to go back and look, that it gave the city authority to relocate in essence, the facility or to do a lot of things. So if it was pretty specific then as to what was going to happen with this bond. Now, am I correct that if we do a bond, we are specifically authorized to use that bond for whatever we said we were going to use it for? If we do a certificate of obligation, you can kind of do whatever with it. Is that correct?
That's kind of a broad question, so I'm not exactly sure what you mean. No, you still have, I mean, you're not going to the voters with a certificate of obligation.
Right.
So there's probably not wording per se that's applicable to that scenario. But certainly as the council, you can, I mean, that's not even what we're really talking about. I don't think people are suggesting a CO. I think they're suggesting a GO, but I mean, I think that's something that the council could make clear with the voters on how they were going to structure that and what they were going to spend it on if they determined to go the CO route. It's a little bit comparing apples to oranges because you're not actually going to the voters to get approval for a certain thing.
Right. And that I realize. Okay, Josh?
Sorry, Mayor, I just think kind of what you were getting at, Cynthia, maybe I can clarify, is she's talking the wording that was on the bond. So the bond is for the municipal complex. If that's
Right.
passed, we can only use that bond for that municipal complex.
Correct. But I think, and I don't know this for sure, the CO you can wheel and deal a little bit with that. But that, again, is not what we're looking at tonight.
I don't think, even with a certificate of obligation, before you go try to pass one, I mean, I don't think, you may not be legally required, but you're morally required to say, we're going to spend it on these things, right? And then spend it on those things. I mean, it's not like you can just say, okay, we're going to pass $1 million certificate of obligation and we're going to have a big party and, everybody gets door prizes. So, no, I mean, you have to say, this is what we're going to spend it on, and then do.
Yes. And you do that publicly and you pass an ordinance on it. So
You're pretty much locked in then to whatever it is you're asking for. Okay. Michelle, you're muted, huh? There we go.
So what is the next step then? I mean, I guess we're kind of divided a little bit. It sounds like some people might want to look at what a bond would take and get get a group together to talk about it, or just fix the buildings that we're in, right? I mean, I don't want to Band-Aid the buildings. I want them to be fixed. So I think that we also need to look at what's our next step to getting a bond started for the next election.
Well, I think what we need, and I'm hearing general consensus, but maybe not 100%. So that's, we need that clarification. But what I'm hearing you all saying is that there seems to be general agreement to maybe, since we have the design plans for the municipal complex, going back to the voters with the GO, general obligation bond election on that project. However, it would be a little bit different, and you would be cutting the fat from the major project, and you would be looking at, instead of doing cosmetic improvements to the fire department, you are looking at to public works and fire, really bringing them up to the code like we've been discussing, and using that money, shifting instead of the facelift, as Councilmember McCabe talked, doing that money and directing it more toward the code compliance items for fire and public works. And if that is the case, then, and everybody's in general agreement with that, cutting the fat, then what the next step would be is, and I have actually reached out to Kim at Quorum, trying to get updated numbers on what is actually still there. But going back to her and saying, okay, how can we cut the fat, right? And just going back, staff going back, working with Quorum, and coming back to you shortly on short order and saying, okay, it looks like we could do this. We could cut the fat here, here, and here. We could add, instead of the facelift to the fire department, we could add the code compliance items that we need to do, and let you see those numbers with the updated figures, because as you know, the building material has skyrocketed, whether it's wood, steel, plastic, whatever. And so trying to go back, looking at what that number would be and bringing it back to you. That would be the next step for the facilities, if that's what I'm hearing you all say.
Cynthia, I'm sorry for interrupting you. I think I'm going to go back to the mayor's question of what it takes to make this successful. And I think one of the things that we have to have a successful bond is to have unanimous support of this body. Okay, we need to have the 5 council members, we need to have the mayor. We need to agree, all of us need to agree that this is something that we want to pass for the good of the city. I think that if we all agree, because we all have different supporters, if we all agree, then I think the odds of it passing go way up. So I think before we start trying to talk about the next steps towards getting the bond going, I think we need to make certain that we have unanimous support of everyone in this meeting on just exactly what that bond would contain.
Yes, Ashley?
Okay, Sam. So I'm not for the municipal complex. You know that from before I was even voted in. So I didn't like Kim's drawings. I didn't like what she presented. I never have. I don't like the parking. I didn't like the inside of what she presented. I don't like the price that we wasted with her. So whatever she can go back, if she can save money with her, hey, all for it, maybe. But I'm not for what she has to offer. So when Michelle and I went and walked it, I think that all of our buildings is a little bit more than what a facelift is, what more than that the public works, what they need over there. I mean, it's just as bad as our push lawnmower. So yes, we all need to meet in person, but we can't meet in person for a city council meeting. So that might be a little much to ask, where we can sit around a table and say, as in a workshop, and say, this is what we need. Because yes, I agree, we all have different supporters. And I get out and walk and talk to my neighbors, walk and talk to different people and listen what they have to say. That's the reason why I put different items on the agenda every week. So we do need something, but what are we going to give back to the citizens? Yes, we need to clean up the town. That old school, the substandard, of the boarded up windows and everything can be an eyesore, but yes, it is part of our community. But what do we want? I want the old city hall, for our uh, city workers, to be in there. And I also want our senior citizens to have back their facility to have their luncheons. But I also would like, the other buildings, to be redone, or if it's a new one. But I'm just rambling on as much as I can. But one, I would like us to meet in a social distance, in a round table, wherever it might be, for us to talk about this, to see if we all agree on it, because right now I'm not agreeing on it. 2, what are we going to do for our citizens? Then have a town hall meeting. And then 3, are we going to raise the taxes, anything, if we do a bond, whatever it is. So, but when Michelle and I walked them, and we were taken back to what our facilities looked like. So I'll just keep listening. So go ahead, it's your meeting. We're all here for you.
Okay, Michelle?
Okay, so council member Majors, you want the city hall redone, not the school, or do you want the school, but just with, hold on, you want the school or just with somebody else doing the whatever it was that you didn't like? I'm
Quorum or Kim, honestly, I don't like it. I would love one, maybe one day, but not right now. We don't have the money for a big municipal complex. I do not. I don't like the drawings that she presented. We wasted. I don't want to say the number. I don't want to say it. I want it for the drawings that she gave that we paid. I would have to do an open, I would have to have Cynthia to look up the amount, since the last bond did not pass, with her, see what the drawings that she did for us and everything, that we wasted. But no, ma'am, I did not like it. Do not want the municipal. I was upset that the bond, that it was just a facade for the fire department. I was highly upset, highly upset. Why would we give our guys that? So, I mean, I don't know. But no, I want the old city hall. I want that to just be the starting of our old downtown.
so
And
you
then,
want, sorry, go ahead.
no,
So you,
I do want the old city hall. I want that building just cleaned up and something done with it, just to be cleaned up. But no, I don't want.
city hall to be done, but the police department, nothing, or just get it up to code, just Band-Aid it, and then public works Band-Aid and fire department Band-Aid?
No, I would love if we can, police station, I would like a new building, even if it's a modular, whatever, like a new building like they have. But I don't know if you've been in there lately since the last time we walked it. Have you been in there?
No.
Okay. Those guys have taken so much pride in it. They have cleaned it up and it looks amazing. So Brody, if you're still on the phone call with us, thank you. It looks so good. So they have painted it. They are wanting new flooring, but they have done whatever they can and just put in. I think they've gotten donations or a little bit out of their own pockets, but which is sad. But they have done, cleaned up out of their own pocket. Cleaned up that building, excuse me. and it looks great. So I would love to give them, they have been on the back burner for so long, give them a little new building, you know, but for that bill, the thing that Cynthia sent over today that I was reading from, 900,000. I mean, that's a lot of money. I mean, I don't know if we gotten bids for a new building. So that's what I was saying. I don't know that one. The fire department, what I think for that, and I'm sorry I took it off my screen, the price, possibly a new building for them. I mean, after walking it, I would like to see, you know, maybe if we can get a bond possible. I don't know. Because we don't have it right now in our budget. We don't have the funds. But the fire department needs something. I mean, walking in their restrooms, citizens, I don't know if you're on the phone call, but those guys, I don't know. I mean, some of the restrooms were as wide as my body. So they couldn't, I mean, Sam, you couldn't walk in the restroom. If I can't walk into it, I mean, there was no way. So, I mean, they only had one that the guys could go in. So yes, they do need restrooms. But in the public works, they need a new building. So, but no, I'm not for doing a huge $7 million, you know, but I just want that building cleaned up and the old city hall done. So,
The bottom line is we're going to have a bond.
but we'll see. I mean, are we going to raise everyone's taxes too? So,
But we can't do anything if we don't.
so
We can do nothing.
all right. So what are we going to put back to the citizens? Sam, this is your meeting. We're all here for you. So, hey, we're here for you.
Well, Ashley, thank you. I appreciate your being here to support me. But no, this is a meeting for the entire city of Rome. We have a facilities problem. All of us agree we have a facilities problem. And that's what we're here to discuss. Like I said, I think the best chance of passing a bond is getting unanimous support. Go ahead, Michelle.
No, keep going. I just have something to say after you get done.
I'd like to, I mean, everyone has the things that they want. Everyone has the things they don't want. Oh, I believe we've lost Ashley. I'm just, I'd like to see us trying to work together. I mean, what are the issues? Okay. Because to me, what I'm hearing right now is the majority of us are saying that we need a new place for the fire department. Okay. Now, I hear Ashley saying that she wants a new place for the fire department. I mean, for the police department, excuse me. But she's more thinking in terms of maybe tear down what they've got and put in a modular building, or maybe put a modular building in the back or something. I'm not real sure, you know, where she was going with that. We have needs, you know. I look at the old city hall. I think on the old city hall that maybe we can get 10 years down the road if we use the entire building for administration, then we still don't have a place for municipal court to meet, or P&Z, or Park and Rec, or the city council. If we try to use, you know, have council meetings there and city administration, I don't believe it's large enough now. Okay. Certainly not for the expansions and the growth that we're going to have coming. Would I like to see us refurbish it and bring it up to code? You bet. I think that'd be a nice thing to do. Put in a couple of ADA compliant bathrooms, put in the plumbing for a break room, get the electrical up to code, put in a floor, put in a ceiling, get it drywalled in, have fire code, you know, fire exits, ADA ramps put in the front, okay? At the very minimum, all of those things would have to be done. I think that'd be a nice thing to put forward. But again, everything costs money. You mentioned, would we have to raise taxes? Well, all depends on how much the bond is, as to how much it would cost to pay for it. I believe we do have a couple of bonds that are going to be rolling off in the next 2 years, so that the impact would be actually quite minimal. I mean, you might have it go up for 1 year, maybe 2, and then we end up with going back down to where it is. So I think now is actually a good time to pass a bond and get these things going, because I think the tax increase, the tax impact would be minimal to our citizens now. But again, I'm suggesting that we negotiate, because Ashley, I understand that you have strong feelings. I'd like to address your concerns, your issues. I'd like to find a common ground that we can work with, because again, the odds of our passing a bond with unanimous support go way up. If we only have a 4-to-1 vote, then all of a sudden it becomes contentious, and now we may end up wasting time and money again. So that's why I'm saying let's negotiate, let's work, let's find the compromise. Michelle?
Cynthia, are we talking about what the impact is to the citizens next meeting? Or what it could be, I guess, could be?
Yeah, I mean, from a high level perspective, so you have some context. It was basically going to be about 10 cents on the INS side. So that's what you can look at. And that's like Councilmember Easton said, for a year or two before the other bonds roll off. Because you're right now, the 2 of them are going to roll off in 24 and 25. And so then you're only going to have, the East Wastewater Treatment Plant bond still in play. And so that opens that up. So that's at the time, and I'm just saying last time with the bond that we had last time, it was about 10 cents on the INS side. And that's some context for you to consider.
10 cents for what? For $100, $100,000, 10 cents for what?
Well, on the INS side, on the tax rate side. So right now our tax rate is 477,694, I believe, per 100 valuation. So on the INS side, you're going to add 10 cents to that. Now, other things on that equation of how you consider how you get to what that final looks like, it changes, because if we've got this year is going to be a little bit different than it was last year, because we've got our preliminary numbers in, and we've gone up a little bit. Last year we didn't go up at all in our valuations. Okay, we were literally flat. And part of that was probably the economy. Part of it was that was the first year that, as my understanding, you all had the tax freeze for the 65 and disability, right? That was the first year that took in effect. And so that represented, I believe it was about 16 million off the valuation, right off the top. So, there's other factors that are going to tell you the bottom line value of what you want to know. I can't answer your question fully, other than it's 10 cents on the INF side. What that will look like, we'll have to see.
I'm ready to shoot them. Probably gonna tell me right now, I don't want to be part of it.
Can you talk on that?
Do I have someone else wanting to speak, or am I confused?
Somebody needs to mute.
So
Okay,
Cynthia,
now
you
play
said
the
10,
devil.
go ahead, Mayor.
I'm sorry, playing the devil's advocate. If we go with the bond, et cetera, for the facilities that we have, what are we going to do for a bond for the roads? Are we going to saddle our citizens with both? Are
Well,
we going to give up one for the other? I don't know.
we're getting a little bit off topic, so I'm going to play Carvin tonight since he's not here. That is something that will be on the agenda next week, where we're talking about all the items. And you do need to kind of consider them, but you guys know what they are. We talked about them in the budget workshop, and you'll have to prioritize those. So yes.
Anybody else with them? Elaine's finally got my attention there.
No, that's all right. I just want to remind everybody that when we start talking about doing bonds, raising taxes, any of that kind of stuff, it affects us directly too. It's not like we are immune or some way we are exempt from these increases. So, there is the personal side. How excited am I about needing a bond? I'm not excited about it at all. But we have a responsibility. So I'm just saying, from a health and safety standpoint, our buildings have to be close to the top of our priorities. Health and safety with the roads, although I want the roads fixed just like everybody else, I drive on them every day too. We're not dealing with the same issues there. Wastewater, health and safety. It's got to be at the very top, especially the West Plant. We can't pretend like that somehow health and safety relative to our buildings is not a priority, that we can trade one for the other. That's already happened for 30 years. Our liability, and I'm not talking about financial liability to do with the budget. I'm talking about our physical liability with our employees and people who enter our buildings and exit our buildings. We are at a huge exposure, financial exposure. If somebody is injured or hurt or falls or whatever. And what we don't want are the feds coming down on us because of our noncompliance with ADA. So we have to deal with these buildings. We can't put it off. We can't trade it for some other infrastructure item here. We're going to have to come up with money and deal with these things. I don't like it any better than anybody else, but we have got to do it. And that means that we can have to take our political hats and put them away. This has nothing to do with election. This has nothing to do with anything that's like that. And what are we doing for our citizens? Ashley has asked. We're giving our citizens a safe place to be, to come in and conduct business. It is important. We have no right to ask our employees to work in non-compliant, dangerous places. We have no right to ask our citizens to come in and conduct business with the city in a building that is not safe. I just don't understand why that this is, you don't understand that there are those who don't understand the complexity of this and the reality of it. It's not this city council's fault that other city councils, and I'm talking about for decades, has not stepped up and taken care of the buildings. And we talk about, well, we'll just go get a modular. That's yet another building that we would have to maintain in addition to what we already have. We can't pretend like by sticking some boards up on the windows that it's not our responsibility to either sell them, tear them down, or make them safe. That's our job. And so I'm sorry to be preaching, but it's all about safety. It's all about health. It has to be our number one priority. I don't care what infrastructure we're looking at. We have to do that. And we're going to have to brave up, and we're not going to be popular. Whatever we decide to do, it's not going to be 100% across the board. And we're not going to be popular as a city council. But we have to make concessions, and we have to sometimes vote for things that we personally don't like raising taxes or doing a bond. But it's what we were elected to do, is to make hard decisions and good decisions for the city. And these buildings are not safe. They are not safe, and we are out of compliance. And so I think we have to just get past, it's not the perfect plan, and we have to come up with a consensus to make this happen. I'm through.
Yes, Ashley.
Okay. Thank you, Elaine. That was very good. All right. So to speak on our buildings, and it brought with Elaine speaking, because our city has not had any money, they have allowed their brothers and their sisters and every handyman in town, after walking the facilities, to do handiwork in here in our buildings and facilities, to do handiwork, because they haven't had money. And it's why our buildings look this way they do, with conduit running one way to breaker boxes that are here, this not working here or there. It shouldn't. But that's councils, previous, allowing it to happen. And it's rolling back to the one before me, the one after it, and so forth. So this one, us, we're going to fix it. So, but yeah, we're not going to be the favorites if this does pass. And because it's been an ongoing thing. And staying in a modular building, it might be our police. I would love to get my brick building, and maybe in a different location if we sold that piece of land. I mean, because right now with it all growing, who knows? But that's the only thing that is in the $9,000 that Sean gave us that we could build. But we need to stop and look what has been passed on y'all's council before me and the council before, and what has been done. But we need to move in the right direction. I'm tired of arguing with this, but we all need to sit down and honestly go over some ideas and do a workshop to see if we are going to do a 10-cent INS, and how our citizens would perceive it. And then with the the sewer rate increase, and how they're going to take that as well. Because we are here not for our personal interest, it's for our citizens. So that's why we were elected, and the best and for the city.
Along that same way, can we schedule an in-person workshop, Cynthia, somewhere in the next week or so? Even if we have to rent space, and I don't know if they'd rent space to us, but they've got a nice community room in Boyd. If we could rent it or utilize it, sit down face to face and come up with this is the way we're going to go. Is that asking too much, y'all?
Do you believe the face-to-face is that going to make a difference?
I
Are we
think it
not,
really,
are we not able to communicate this way?
I think face-to-face is much better. That's my personal.
Do you believe that we cannot communicate and negotiate and compromise this way?
I didn't say that. I said it would be much better
That's my,
face-to-face.
oh, absolutely. I agree face-to-face would be better. There's no question face-to-face communications is better.
Why can't we
My,
do it, Sam?
my question is, are we unable to negotiate and compromise in this medium?
I have no idea because I haven't seen it happen yet.
I would
It,
think,
Well, we're trying very hard right now.
but Sam, if we could sit there with the email that Cynthia set out with our facilities agreement, if we had Sean there, if we could talk to Brody and Fitch and have them sitting with us to say, this is what we'd like, this is what we'd need, then hey, it would really help the situation because I'm not on board with it. So if you want all of this and all of us to be together, I guess my vote is usually I'm the Lone Ranger right now. And I want to get out and talk to the citizens because usually after this meeting is done, it usually goes on to, the social media site, and you hear about the citizens and what they have to say. And I get out and walk on my neighborhood and hear, listen to my neighbors. What if they don't like it? So if we're all sitting here and are sitting around a social distance and we all work together, that way we're on this same page and we can all talk to them and say, okay, this is what we want to do. Option A, this is option B. We all might work together.
Well, then let me ask another question.
Yes, sir.
I want to work with you here. I want to work with you ladies. Cynthia, do we have the ability to live stream a meeting?
Not yet.
Okay. How close are we to having that ability?
Well, part of it is, I mean, I've identified a lot of the equipment, stuff we will need. It's not in the budget, so we'll have to find the money in the budget. It will have to be, we're the jack of all trades at City Hall, so we'll have to, work on that. And we'll have to get it implemented. But it's not just the live stream, it's having a different sound system, it is having an encoder. I mean, there's other stuff that has to happen. That's one of the reasons why when you guys passed that ordinance that requires us to do so, that it was in there, that we have, 60 days to get ready. Now I have been researching, I can bring a budget amendment to you, but it's not going to happen next week. And along that line, what I will say is on a bond, first of all, we're already encroaching up against budget, and the rank and file budget, is moving forward. So we're working on that internally to bring to you all as we normally would. But these are important pieces. And again, we're getting a little bit off track here, but these are important pieces that staff needs to know how you're going to proceed on facilities and the other items that is on the agenda next week on May 27th. The whole kit and caboodle, like it was, on the budget workshop. For you guys to be able to prioritize and then give us a direction. Tonight was designed, as I understand, to really kind of focus on the facilities. And that's what we need to be talking about in, the financial potential options, CO, GO, that sort of thing. I would say, I agree that it is good to have those conversations. It's great to have them in person. We do have our police chief here. We do have our fire chief here. You guys can ask them questions. I'm sure they'll respond. We also, you guys have a tall order. You guys have a lot of decisions to make in a short amount of time. We have been discussing it for the last several months, and now it's time to let staff know how you want to proceed. But if you have questions, you know, I hear you say, let's conduct a workshop in person. Well, right now we can't do in person, but we do have other staff members here. I see the fire chief and the police chief here, and I'm certain they'd be willing to answer questions, at least get some of it done tonight while we're here.
Well, you said we cannot meet in person. We do no longer have, we never had a restriction on meeting in person. We had an exemption to allow us to meet like we are now. So you're saying we cannot meet in person?
No, I'm not saying we can't meet in person.
Okay, it sounded like that. So,
No.
yes,
The
Elaine.
question was if we could live stream it right now, and we're not ready to live stream it. We can meet in person at the community center. We can't live stream it next week.
Elaine?
I just have, just a comment. I've had my shots and I still wear a mask when I'm around people that I think may not have had their shots. And there's a difference between outside and inside, according to the CDC just today. So I'm not opposed to us meeting in person. I am opposed to us not letting our citizens who want to participate and they can't because they can't take the risk, or maybe they're physically unable to take the shots or whatever, because they can't be assured who else has not had their shots and who are, if they've not had their shots, are choosing not to wear a mask, which puts people at risk. The unknown about those that are not masking and especially haven't had shots. So my only concern here is if we met in an area where we could, like Ashley suggested, give each other a lot of space. That's one thing. I'm not opposed to that. But my biggest concern is those citizens who want to participate, and if we go to a live meeting and we don't have a way to broadcast, then we have discriminated against them in some fashion, that they cannot participate because of this situation that nobody wants to be in relative to COVID. And so I think everyone's still trying to find their way. But, the guy with the CDC said today that people are not reading the fine print about masking and being inside. And that is, if you've not had your shots, you ought to be wearing a mask if it's indoors. Maybe we can meet at the pavilion. I mean, but it would be difficult to hear each other, but I do think that we, as a city council, we need to move forward with going live. And if that means that we need to be working on getting that budget amended some way so we can get the equipment. And if it's not something that we can do quickly, but we need to get moving on it, because that's coming. We need to get that taken care of so we can have these meetings. And that's my only concern is if we get together and then we can't, there's people that can't participate, and that's just not fair. It's not fair to those that really can't or are afraid to be in the building with us.
I don't want to get too far off. We're kind of getting off the beaten path of what's on the agenda to discuss. So we're hearing what you're saying. I can get back and poll each of you guys on that, but I want to keep us on topic here.
Gotcha.
Okay, so where are we? What are we going to do when we walk out of here? What is our next step? Sam?
I think that each of us have had an opportunity to voice our opinions as to what direction we would like to go. I think we all need to think in terms of options of what kind of compromises and negotiations we're willing to make. to find a consensus, because we still, I know, are in complete agreement that we have a facilities issue. Okay, I don't think anybody here can say we don't have a problem with facilities. We have met my objective for today of we've brainstormed, we've talked about ideas, we've voiced our opinions. And that's what I wanted to hear was everyone's opinions of where we can go and what people want. And so now I ask, okay, think about what the options are, think about what you've heard, and then let's come back and for our next meeting, included on the agenda for the next meeting, let's talk about this same issue again and see if maybe we've thought about the compromises we can make. Find common ground. I mean, that's the backbone of what our country's built on. The politics of our country being built on is compromise and working with each other. You give a little of this, you take a little of that. You know, I mean, that's how our Constitution was written. Okay. So next steps, Mayor, I think, are we all need to reflect on what we've learned today, learned this evening, and find the future for the city.
Is everybody ready to bring this back to the Thursday 27th meeting? Cynthia has this on the agenda, the workshop. Well, is it called a workshop, Cynthia, or what are you calling it?
No, it won't be a workshop. It'll be a long meeting, but this agenda item that I'm bringing back is more holistic. So it's the facilities, but it's the continuation of the budget workshop discussion and what came out of that. And I don't want to get into that because it's not really on the agenda, but I will send you guys a. But so it's basically taking that holistic approach. Facilities, yes, all the other items we talked about, and you guys giving staff direction and prioritizing them in light of the budget, because we need that information as we move forward in developing the budget that we have to bring to you at the end of June. So it is on the agenda. The bottom line is yes, it's on the agenda holistically, so we can talk about all of it.
And Sam, quick question. Do you think if we revise our thought, go out for a bond, we can weasel word it, if that's a good term, where we don't fall into that 3-year limitation?
I don't believe there's a 3-year limitation. I've done some additional sleuthing of my own. We could, if we wanted, to come back with the exact same bond that failed in November. There's not a 3-year limitation on that.
Okay, I'm probably misunderstood the guys that night. That you had to wait 3 years, or you had to have different requirements.
No, you can't go back to take that same bond to a CO. So you guys did a GO, a general obligation bond election. You can come back every year and do a GO bond election. You can't.
Okay, and it doesn't have to be for a reworded, if that's a good term.
If it were a certificates of obligation, it would, and that means you're not going to a vote, you would have to be substantially different. You couldn't go back with the same thing because that would be bypassing the voters.
Okay, but you could go back to the voters with more or less the same thing.
Yes.
For a GO.
For a GO, yeah.
Right. Okay. Yes, Ashley.
Sam, since this is your meeting and you were on council before, and so you're presenting it, and I was very disappointed in you that you would do that to our fire department and our fire chief, that you just wanted to give them a facelift. Would you do that to them again? Would you neglect them again?
Well, you know, for somebody that talks about not wanting to be negative, you like to go pretty damn negative, Ashley. So you need to stop and think about what you're doing here. You complain about people being negative, and then you're the most negative of all. Now, personally, I think that we need to make certain that our fire chief and the fire department have compliance of their entire building, ADA compliant. I want their roof to be dried in. I want their bathrooms fixed. I want the electric fixed. I want the fire code fixed. I want the plumbing fixed. I want to do the same thing for public works. I'd like to do the same thing for the police department. And I believe that's how I started this meeting, by saying we need all of our employees and all of our citizens to have safe places to go.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that. It's on here now, and the citizens will listen to this, because on the last one, that could have been, they were upset. You just wanted to give them shiny exterior. You didn't take care of Fitch. You didn't take care of the guys inside. And you just gave them paint and a new flagpole. So thank you, Sam. I wasn't being negative. I just wanted to get you to say exactly what you wanted to do. So I just getting to you. So
Hey, it just turned to 8.
Try representing the citizens and quit trying to just get to me. You need to stop. You need to stop with your own personal agenda and start having an agenda for the citizens.
Okay, let's consider adjourning. It's 8:02. We started at 6:30. We're going to have to be back here at 6:30 next Thursday. And we need to rest up, according to Cynthia. It's going to be a long meeting. And we'll try to get a lot of things accomplished. Does anybody have anything else for tonight? Okay, then I move that we go to future agenda items. Although Cynthia has been working on the 27th, we could still add if need to. Anybody got a future agenda item?
I had one, but I don't think I want to add it. It was about trash, but
Hey, go for it. You
no.
know.
I think I'll just talk to Cynthia on the phone. It was for the citizens have been asking me about bulk trash. But
Give them Cynthia's direct phone number. That'll work. You know, anybody else that has anything for future agendas?
You will be happy to know, Ashley, that that is actually on the agenda.
oh, mercy.
Okay, anybody else? No, okay, no more future agendas. I put on there, which I think Cynthia already has, the roads and the speeds on Virginia around the corner and on Main Street. So anything else? Okay, I move that we adjourn, and I understand I don't have to have a vote. If anybody really doesn't want to, let me know now. So we are out of here, and we'll see all of y'all next Thursday.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.